What we're going to do is we're going to do a part one of trig ratios. So we're going to be using the SOHCAHTOA. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now, how can we tell the sides? Well, if we look at angle A, our opposite side is always directly opposite the angle. Our hypotenuse is always directly across from the 90-degree angle. So that leaves that other side to be the adjacent side. So for example 1, what we're going to do is we're going to find the missing sides. You're going to need a scientific calculator in order to solve this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use x for all the horizontal lines, and I'm going to use r for the hypotenuse, and I'm going to use y for the vertical lines. And that's just getting us ready for the unit circle. You could use any variables you want, but I just kind of want to get us familiar with the x, y, and r. So we have 35 degrees. This is our opposite side. I'm going to solve for x first. That's the adjacent side. So what I have is opposite over adjacent, which is tangent. So I'm going to go tangent of 35 is equal to 6 over x. So I'm going to multiply each side by x. Then I'm going to divide it by the tangent of 35 in order to get the x by itself. And so x is equal to 6 over tangent of 35. So on my calculator, I'm going to do the 6 divided by the tangent of 35. And that right there is going to give me the answer of 8.6. So depending on the calculator, we go 6 divided by tangent of 35. Or with some of them, you go 6 divided by, you hit the 35, then the tangent button, and then you hit enter. So just test out your graphing calculator, see what gives you the 8.6. So for the second one, this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve for my r. So I'm going to use my given, and that would be my opposite over the hypotenuse. Opposite over a hypotenuse is sine. So I'm going to go sine of 35 is equal to 6 over r. Now I'm going to do the same thing. That means that I'm going to divide it. 6 divided by sine of 35. We're multiplying each side by r, and then we divide it by the sine of 35 in order to get the variable by itself. So depending on your graphing calculator, I'm going to go 6 divided by sine of 35, and that gives me 10.5. When I find the missing angle, I'm going to go 180 minus 90 minus 35, and that gives me 55. Now, an easier way to do it, because each of these is going to have 90 degrees, is technically it's just whatever the angle is minus subtracted from 90. So 90 minus 35 gives us 55. So let's look at letter B. I'm going to solve for y and r, y being my vertical and r being my radius of the unit circle, which is always going to be the hypotenuse. But we'll get into that another day. I'm going to solve for my y value first. So this is my opposite side. This is my adjacent side. Opposite over adjacent is tangent. So I'm going to do tangent of 19 is equal to y over 5. I'm going to multiply each side by 5. Notice that I'm multiplying in this case. Whenever my variable is on top, I multiply. Whenever my variable is on the bottom, just like the last two, I'm dividing. So I have y is equal to 5 tangent of 19. So you're going to go 5 times tangent of 19, or some calculators 5 times 19, then you hit tangent, then you hit enter. And so my y value is equal to 1.7. Now for my r value, I'm going to use the 5 and I'm going to use the r. Adjacent over hypotenuse is going to be cosine. So I have the cosine of 19 is equal to 5 over r. Notice that I'm dividing the variable. So that means that whenever I divide the variable, what it's going to look like is 5 divided by cosine of 19 when I move it all around. And that gives me r is equal to 5.3. The missing angle, I'm going to take 90 minus 19, and that's going to give me 71 degrees. For letter C, I'm going to solve for y and x, y being my vertical line, x being my horizontal line. I'm going to start with my x value, so that would be my adjacent side and my hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse is cosine, so cosine of 52 is equal to x over 14. Since my variable's on top, that means I'm multiplying. So I'm going to go x equals 14 cosine of 52, meaning that my x value is 8.6. Now I'm going to solve for my y value. So when I'm solving for my y value, what I have is my opposite over my hypotenuse, which would be sine. So the sine of 52 is equal to y over 14. Since y is on top, that means I'm multiplying. So it would be 14 sine of 52. And that right there would give me an answer of 11.0. Okay, pause the video and try those next three on your own and see how you do. With this first one, once again, I'm going to call this side y and this side r. This is my opposite side. My given is my adjacent side. Opposite over adjacent is tangent. So I'm going to do tangent of 62 is equal to y over 8. My variable's on top, so that means I multiply. So y is equal to 8 tangent of 62. And that gives me y is equal to 15.0. So for my r value, that is my hypotenuse. So adjacent over hypotenuse is cosine. So the cosine of 62 is equal to 8 over r. Since r is in the denominator, that means I divide. So 8 over cosine of 62. And that r value gives me 17.0. Now, when I'm finding the angle, I'm going to take 90 minus 62, and that right there gives me 28 degrees. So looking at the next one, I'm going to solve for y and x. I'm going to start off with my x value. This is my adjacent, and this is my given is my hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse would be cosine. So I have the cosine of 21 is equal to x over 11. Since my variable is on top, that means I multiply. And so that gives me x is equal to 10.3. For the second one, I'm going to solve for y. And so that would be my opposite side and my hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse is sine of 21 is equal to y over 11. So since the y is on top, that means we're multiplying. And what that gives us is 3.9. Now, one thing to point out, if you remember from geometry, the larger the angle, that means the larger its opposite side. So notice that 21 is going to be the smallest angle. Notice that the side is 3.9, which is the smallest. Next would be that would be 69. And that would be larger, obviously, 10.3. And the hypotenuse should be the largest, which is 11. So one way to double check if your answers are correct is The larger the angle, the larger the opposite side. And for our last one, I'm going to solve for x and r. I'm going to start off with x. That would be my adjacent side, and my opposite side, that would be tangent. So I'm going to go tangent of 38 is equal to x over 10. Since my variable is on top, I'm multiplying. So that would be 10 tangent of 38, which is 12.8. And then for the other one, I'm going to solve for r. So given is opposite. R is hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse is sine. So sine of 38 is equal to 10 over r. R is being divided. So then that means that it's 10 over sine of 38, which gives us an r value of 16.2. And when we're finding the angle, we're going to go 90 minus 38, which gives us 52.